The 1960s gave us sweet harmonies, satin suits, and street corner melodies that shaped the soul of America. But not every group was welcomed with open arms. Some were judged, misunderstood, or flat out resented in their time. From backstage drama to industry politics, these are the groups who caught heat and still made history. Let's begin. Number 15, the Marvelettes.
Whoa, yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait.
Before Motown crowned its polished princesses, there were the Marvelettes, raw, young, and direct from the halls of Inkster High School. They delivered Motown's first #1 pop hit with Please Mr. Postman in 1961, opening doors for everyone who came after.
Oh, yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait.
But instead of celebration, they faced skepticism from inside the label itself. They didn't fit Berry Gordy's preferred glamour profile. They were darker-skinned, less styled, and more spirited than the image Motown wanted to project at that moment. Producers shuffled the group's support, delaying their albums, quietly pushing newer acts ahead of them.
I've been standing here waiting, Mr. Postman.
The Marvelettes weren't hated by audiences. They were undervalued by the very machine they helped build. You can almost feel the sting. Smoky Detroit studios, microphones hanging low. Young women singing their hearts out while executives decided someone else was the new priority. Yet, the music survived. Their harmonies influenced the Supremes. Their urgency influenced Martha and the Vandellas. Their courage shaped the Motown girl group blueprint.
Please, Mr. Postman, look and see.
And today, when Postman spins, the room still lights up. Proof that history remembers what the industry tried to forget. And if you think that kind of quiet rivalry was intense, wait until you hear what's next. Our next group's drama was front page news. Number 14, the Shirelles.
Miss Erin Hawkins, Miss Crystal Justini, Miss Lorinda Hawkins, and Miss Lynn McDonald. The sensational Shirelles.
The Shirelles were pioneers, the first girl group to ever hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100, opening the floodgates for the entire girl group wave of the 1960s. But with that success came something they never expected: moral outrage and cultural backlash.
Tonight you're mine, completely.
When they released Will You Love Me Tomorrow in 1960, radio critics and conservative groups accused them of promoting teen sexuality, independence, and emotional boldness in young women, especially young black women. In an era that still demanded politeness and silence from girls, the Shirelles sang about desire, longing, and heartbreak with honesty. Some radio stations refused to play them. Some newspapers called them dangerous. Even industry insiders whispered that they were too bold. Code words wrapped in gender and race politics. Picture a cafeteria jukebox glowing under fluorescent light, teenagers slow dancing while adults frowned from the doorway. The Shirelles were giving voice to feelings society pretended young women didn't have. And that honesty scared people. But legacy always outlasts fear. Their harmonies became the blueprint for the Supremes, the Ronettes, and nearly every R&B vocal group that followed. And today, when those shimmering strings hit, the world remembers. They didn't just break charts, they broke barriers. And if resistance to young female voices was strong, the next group faced a whole different storm: pure industry rivalry. Number 13, the Four Tops.
Are the Four Tops.
The Four Tops weren't hated by audiences. Fans adored them. The heat came from inside the industry, especially during the fierce Motown popularity wars of the mid-60s.
Ain't no woman like the one I've got.
As the Supremes rocketed up the charts with slick pop arrangements and Diana Ross's spotlight aura, many insiders pushed the Four Tops into the role of underdogs. the grittier, less commercial act.
Ain't no woman like the one I've got. Oh, no, it don't come better.
Despite Levi Stubbs' soaring, desperate powerhouse voice, one of the purest in all of soul, some Motown executives believed they were too emotional for crossover success, too dramatic, too raw. Meanwhile, their label mates' Temptations were being given big, flashy promotional pushes and cutting-edge, psychedelic sounds.
'Cause it's my word shall obey. Woo-hoo.
But listen to Reach Out, I'll Be There, or Bernadette, and you'll hear something deeper than marketing strategy. You'll hear the sound of Detroit's concrete streets echoing through a man's chest. You'll hear horns that feel like headlights on a rainy block at midnight. You'll hear passion that can't be manufactured. Their tension with the Motown machine symbolized a bigger truth of the 1960s. Soul was never just entertainment. It was emotion, identity, and community. And here's the irony. The very intensity that once made execs nervous is what makes the Four Tops timeless today. Their records don't just play, they hit you. But if you think the industry jealousy was rough, the next group endured something harsher: outright accusations and public controversy. Number 12, Gladys Knight and the Pips. By the mid-60s, Gladys Knight and the Pips were already known for tight harmonies, smooth choreography, and one of the most commanding voices in soul music. But behind the scenes, there was a quiet resentment brewing, because Gladys Knight wasn't supposed to shine that bright. At Motown, Diana Ross was being shaped into the label's singular superstar, and any artist whose fire threatened to burn just as bright risked being pushed to the side. Gladys had a voice that could cut through smoke-filled rooms, church halls, or orchestral strings. Raw, powerful, unmistakably emotional. She didn't sing at you, she sang to you, with sincerity that could bring a crowd to its knees. But some executives and even other artists saw her rising momentum as a challenge to the carefully managed hierarchy of Motown. Rumors spread. Opportunities were stalled. Songs originally intended for her found their way to other artists. Imagine being on stage in a small Detroit club, spotlight warm, band gliding behind you, crowd leaning in on every note. Only to return to a business that whispered you should be smaller. That was the weight Gladys carried. But talent always finds daylight. Her voice would later define an era, and the Pips' harmonies became legendary. Their patience, grace, and unity proving stronger than industry politics. If that entry felt like quiet strength under pressure, just wait. The next band faced something louder: public rivalry and newspaper-level feuds. Number 11, The Miracles. Long before Smokey Robinson was the poetic face of Motown, the Miracles were a group, a tight-knit vocal unit that helped define Berry Gordy's musical vision. But success came with a shadow. As Smokey's songwriting genius bloomed, Motown and the press began spotlighting him alone, slowly dimming the presence of the rest of the group. This caused quiet resentment in two directions. Inside the group, where longtime members felt overshadowed. I'm just a love machine, and I won't work. And outside, where critics accused the Miracles of being Smokey's backup singers, a claim that deeply overlooked their harmonies, arrangements, and stage presence. Imagine 1963, a humid Detroit night, the group in crisp suits, harmonizing under soft blue stage lights. They were equals then, voices intertwined like braids of velvet and smoke. The crowds saw unity, But the industry loves a star, not a family. So headlines made Smokey the brand, album covers shifted, and even fans began to forget that the Miracles were a collective soul, not a solo act. Yet their music, unbreakable. Tracks like Tracks of My Tears and Ooh Baby Baby are emotional landmarks. Gentle, aching, eternal. Their influence runs through every slow jam that makes hearts melt today. Legacy doesn't lie. The Miracles were never just a backing group. They were architects of the Motown sound. Now, if that was a story of quiet heartbreak behind closed doors, the next one is pure on-stage fire and personality clashes. Number 10, Martha and the Vandellas.
Here dancing in the streets, Martha and the Vandellas.
Martha and the Vandellas brought heat. Heat Wave, Nowhere to Run, and Dancing in the Street weren't just hits. They were movement music, the soundtrack of city summers, block parties, and civil rights marches. But with that intensity came controversy. Their music was louder, rawer, and more street-fueled than the polished Motown image Berry Gordy preferred, while the Supremes floated in chiffon and spotlight elegance. The Vandellas were grit, grit, and more grit. Martha Reeves sang like the truth was burning its way through her ribs. And that made some executives, and even some fellow Motown acts, uncomfortable. They were seen as too bold, too loud, too Detroit. Radio stations in conservative regions sometimes refused to play Dancing in the Street, claiming it would incite riots. Meanwhile, industry insiders whispered that they lacked the softness needed to cross over white pop charts. But look now. Their music is the soundtrack of real joy, real community, real life. The Vandellas didn't offer perfection. They offered electric soul. And that's why they're remembered with love long after the critics faded. If that felt fiery, buckle up. The next group lived through ego battles, rotating lineups, and stage heat so strong, it spilled into headlines. Number 9, the Isley Brothers. Before they became generational legends, the Isley Brothers were seen as rebels in the R&B world. They didn't fit neatly into Motown's smooth choreographed packages or the clean-cut vocal group aesthetic of the early 60s. They were louder, rawer, more improvisational, a little too church and a little too street for industry comfort. When they released Shout in 1959, radio program directors complained it was uncontrolled and too wild. Smoky nightclubs banned the song because it made the crowd get too involved. People stood on chairs, shoes came off, hips moved freely. In some cities, DJs were told not to play the Isleys because they stirred the room too much. And later, when they signed with Motown, they clashed with the label's strict creative control. They wanted guitars louder, grooves grittier, arrangements looser. Motown said no. The Isleys walked. That decision, that defiance, would later lead them to create It's Your Thing, the anthem of independence itself. Picture it, a summer block party, dusk rolling in. That bass line thumping like heartbeat and rebellion all at once. The Isley Brothers didn't just sing soul, they lived it. If that's the sound of standing your ground, then number 8 brings the sound of heartbreak, hesitation, and the industry's coldest betrayal. Number 8, the Drifters.
And your shoes get so hot, you wish your tired feet were fat.
The Drifters made some of the smoothest, most golden harmonies of the early soul era. Under the boardwalk, There Goes My Baby, Up on the Roof. But behind that velvet sound was one of the messiest group histories in R&B. Members were swapped out like spare parts. Managers held the group name like a trademark, not a family.
Out of the sun.
And for decades, the Drifters became known as the band where no one knew who was actually in it. Imagine pouring your heart out on stage, night after night, only to wake up and discover your group had been recast without you. That's what happened, repeatedly. Record exec George Treadwell controlled the group name and fired members without hesitation, sometimes mid-tour, sometimes mid-recording. Members who sang on hits didn't always get credit, pay, or recognition.
From the park.
Even fans were confused, and some felt betrayed. Yet, the music? It felt like warm sand under bare feet, nighttime breezes, streetlights glowing against the ocean. Their voices painted nostalgia before nostalgia had a name. Today, the sound remains legendary, but the story behind it? A reminder that industry brilliance and industry heartbreak often walk hand in hand.
We'll be having some fun under the boardwalk. People walk.
If that felt like quiet sorrow behind glowing harmonies, the next one is pure fan backlash. Audiences turned on them in real time. Number 7, the Monkees.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Monkees!
Now, some folks argue the Monkees weren't strictly an R&B group. But in the late 60s, they were marketed into R&B spaces, booked on soul TV shows, and pushed onto charts alongside Motown acts. And that's exactly why they became one of the most hated bands among soul musicians and fans at the time. The Monkees were formed for television, a manufactured group cast before they were allowed to truly create. Meanwhile, real R&B groups had spent years rehearsing harmonies on porches, in school stairwells, on street corners under flickering light. So when the Monkees were given studio tracks written by top-tier soul and pop songwriters, many in the R&B world saw it as disrespectful, a shortcut through blood, sweat, and church-bred artistry. Picture 1967. Soul musicians touring in cramped vans, sleeping in cheap motels, fronting bar crowds, pouring every ounce into every show. And then, 4 guys on TV, smiling and miming to pre-recorded tracks, instantly hitting the charts. Fans felt authenticity was under attack. Musicians said, "We earned this," they didn't. The Monkees were even booed opening for Jimi Hendrix. Audiences didn't want polished pop. They wanted soul that lived. To their credit, the Monkees eventually fought back, learned their instruments, wrote their own music, reclaimed control. Hey, I'm better off alone. But in the mid-60s, they were the poster children of what soul fans rejected. Industry-made hits without the heartbreak behind them. If this was the story of image versus authenticity, the next group takes us into the fire of personality clashes, heartbreak, and brotherhood tested. Number 6, The Temptations, classic lineup era.
On a cloudy day.
Now, let's be clear. The world loved the Temptations. The problem wasn't the audience. It was the storm happening inside the group itself. Fame can be heavy, and when you've got 5 men sharing one spotlight, jealousy is always a few inches away. In the mid to late 60s, the Temptations were climbing towards superstardom.
What can make me feel this way?
Suits sharp, choreography crisp, harmonies like velvet poured over steel. But as David Ruffin's voice became the emotional center of their biggest hits, "My girl ain't too proud to beg," "I know, I'm losing you," his confidence turned into conflict. He wanted top billing, His name on the group's title, special treatment, a separate limousine, the kind of spotlight no group could share. Meanwhile, the Temptations were navigating the shift from romantic Motown sweetness to the psychedelic Isaac Hayes-styled, socially aware sound that defined the late 60s. Change was exciting, but change also divides. Imagine being backstage, lights dim, crowd roaring, and 5 men trying to sing as brothers while their hearts are pulling in different directions. That clash created some of the greatest soul music ever recorded. But it also made the group one of the most internally resented acts of the era. Their legacy? Undeniable. But the price of greatness? Heavy. If you're feeling these stories, hit like. It helps keep this history alive. And stay with me. The top 5 have the deepest drama, the strongest reactions, and some of the most surprising twists in all of R&B history. Number 5 into the Monkees, early Stax House Band. Before Stax Records became a soul powerhouse, before Booker T and the MGs locked into that molten, slow-burn Memphis groove, there was the Monkees, the early Stax House Band. They were the musicians behind the scenes, laying down tracks for Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Carla Thomas, and dozens more. And yet, they were hated by many musicians of the time. Not because they weren't talented, but because they were integrated. In the early 1960s, the Monkees, and later the MGs, were one of the very few racially mixed bands working in the American South, recording and performing together. White guitarists and bassists standing side by side with black drummers and organists. Same stage, same studio, same bus, same meals. To us now, that sounds powerful, revolutionary even. But in early 60s Memphis, that was dangerous. Some radio stations refused to play their music. Some venues refused to book them. There were threats, slurs, and confrontation everywhere they traveled. Picture the scene. A humid Memphis night, neon bar sign flickering, a crowd watching with narrowed eyes, wondering how to react to what they were seeing. But then the groove hit, deep, slow, unmistakably Southern. And people couldn't help it. Their shoulders moved, their heads nodded, their feet tapped. The Monkees didn't argue. They didn't preach. They let the music do the talking. And that music helped shape the sound of soul forever. If that was struggle in the spotlight of the South, the next group got hit with backlash from the very audiences they were meant to inspire. Number 4, the Supremes. Today, the Supremes are remembered as the crown jewels of Motown. Elegant, glamorous, perfectly polished. But in the mid-1960s, they were one of the most resented groups in the industry. And not because of their music. It was because of favoritism. And everybody knew it. Diana Ross wasn't just a star. She was Berry Gordy's chosen star. As the Supremes rose, Gordy shifted resources, producers, arrangements, and marketing away from other Motown acts, funneling everything into shaping Diana as the label's centerpiece. That meant the Supremes received opportunities, television appearances, press spots, headline tours, that equally talented groups at Motown did not. This didn't come from fans. This came from the inside. Whispers backstage, sideline stares at rehearsals, other artists watching the Supremes walk past in fresh gowns while their own material waited, delayed, forgotten. The Supremes were blamed for something they didn't control, the label's politics. And when Diana Ross eventually got lead spotlight billing, Replacing Florence Ballard in emotional and very public fashion, resentment grew even stronger. Many saw it as the painful moment where talent bowed to power. But then you hear, "Stop, in the name of love," or "You can't hurry, love," or "Come see about me." And suddenly, all the drama fades away. What remains is the sound of America dancing. Living rooms, church basements, sock hops, summer lawns. Joy in a 45 RPM groove. The Supremes may have stood in the storm, but they also shaped the soundtrack of the decade. If that was the story of industry politics, number 3 is about the heat of being too far ahead of the times and paying the price. Number 3, Sly and the Family Stone. By the late 1960s, Sly and the Family Stone were doing something almost no one else dared.
County fair in the country sun.
Making music that was funk, soul, rock, gospel, and protest all at once, with a fully integrated band of men and women sharing spotlight and power. They weren't just breaking musical rules. They were breaking social ones. And with that came backlash, heavy backlash. Some white rock audiences thought they were too black. Some black soul traditionalists thought they were too psychedelic. Some radio stations refused to categorize them, saying they didn't belong on any chart. Even concert promoters didn't know how to market a band that refused to choose a lane, so they tried to push them out of all of them. And then there was Sly himself, brilliant, visionary, but carrying the pressure of history on his shoulders. Fame weighs differently when the world watches every misstep waiting to say, "See, it couldn't last." Rumors, missed shows, tension, exhaustion, the kind of pressure that cracks a foundation from the inside out. But listen to Everyday People, sing a simple song, or I Want to Take You Higher, and you'll hear a new world being born in real time. A world where rhythm equals freedom. Sly wasn't hated because he failed. He was hated because he changed music before people were ready for it. If that was the sound of revolution ahead of its time, number 2 is the sound of a band loved by fans but attacked by the music establishment itself. Number 2, the Ronettes. The Ronettes walked into rooms like they owned them. Beehive hair stacked sky high, eyeliner sharp as attitude, voices drenched in New York street romance. But the reason they were hated wasn't their sound, it was their power. Ronnie Spector had a voice that didn't just sing, it announced. It filled the space, it led the room. And in the early 1960s, the music industry was not ready for a young black Latina woman to stand front and center with that kind of command. Female artists were expected to be sweet, soft, agreeable. The Ronettes were none of that. Then came Phil Spector, controlling, possessive, threatened by Ronnie's star power.
You give me, I'll give you 3.
He tried to own her voice, her image, even her movement. He held back releases, blocked performances, and sabotaged opportunities, all to keep her from rising without him. Meanwhile, critics and rival groups whispered. Some said the Ronettes were too wild, too sensual, too bold. But listen now to Be My Baby. That opening drum crack is the sound of the world shifting. They weren't just a girl group. They were a revolution in eyeliner and echo chamber reverb. And that brings us to number 1. The band whose backlash was so intense it nearly rewrote soul history. Number 1, Ike and Tina Turner.
It's time I'm going to do all I can to do right by my man.
No group in 1960s R&B carried more brilliance and more controversy than Ike and Tina Turner. On stage, they were lightning. Blistering horns, grinding bass lines, Tina's voice cutting through air like a blade of flame.
Just another face in society.
Audiences didn't just watch them perform. They felt them, sweating, shouting, lifting the room into a kind of electrical fever only they could summon. But behind that explosive magic was one of the darkest stories in soul history.
He may never be a rich man, Lord knows.
Ike and Turner was a band leader, arranger, and musical architect, yes, but he also controlled the group with an iron fist, managing finances, song choice, travel schedules, and above all, Tina's life.
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, to do right.
The industry whispered about it, musicians saw the tension backstage, and fans felt something in the air, even before the truth came out years later. Still, the backlash at the time didn't come from the abuse story that would surface publicly in the 1980s. In the 60s, the hate came from both sides of the genre divide. Rock critics said they were too raw for mainstream charts.
Rolling on a river, all right, roll.
R&B purists said they were too electrified, pushing soul too far, too loud, too fast. And Motown traditionalists said the Aketz's choreography was too suggestive, a code word that always meant too powerful. Picture it, a smoky club, stage lights blazing gold, Tina in fringe and fire, Ike's band running grooves hotter than gasoline. The crowd doesn't clap, they erupt. Their music was undeniable, their legacy, complicated, their impact, immeasurable. They changed the temperature of soul music forever. From industry politics to musical revolution, these groups remind us that greatness rarely comes without friction. The 60s didn't just give us music, it gave us stories, struggles, and soul carved from real life. Thanks for taking this ride with me. Subscribe to keep the groove alive, and never miss our next stroll through soul history. Up next, 15 controversial R&B songs that defined the 1960s. Click on the screen, and let's keep the rhythm rolling.